Back to the Metro, I'm Kerry Jr. II in for Robin Vincent. In Detroit, 3 of the city's 7 city council districts have a community advisory council. The body helps advocate for residents' issues and gives them direct access to city council members. Unfortunately, people running for the advisory council are now faced with an issue. Due to the confusion in the city clerk's office, anyone who wants to join a community advisory council will have to run as a write-in. Their names won't simply appear on the ballot. This includes people who have been serving on these councils for several years. Producer Jack Philbrant spoke with 2 people who have been paying close attention to the issue. He spoke with Detroit Documentaries coordinator Noah Kincaid and Outlier Media civic life reporter Brianna Rice to learn more.
Noah, to start out, what is a community advisory council?
Yeah, community advisory councils are kind of unique in city government. They are the only elected body that is created by petition of the residents of that district. They serve pretty much as a conduit to help citizens access and to improve their access to city government. According to the city charter, their duties include communicating with city council, the concerns of groups, agencies, businesses, residents within a specific district in respect to programs and services in that district. They also are there to kind of assist groups, agencies, businesses, all these same constituents by helping to kind of clarify issues that their district is facing, kind of helping them over the procedural hurdles of accessing services of the city government. Now, the city also has district managers that kind of serve a similar role. They also operate as a conduit for residents specific to a certain district, but and they have some overlap here, but there are a couple kind of differences that I think are worth noting. Community advisory councils, those members are elected and or several of them are appointed by city council. They are unpaid for the job that they do, and they are unfunded. So no taxpayer dollars go to them in their operations. They have to basically collect donations to operate. District managers, on the other hand, are they're hired. They're city employees. They are paid, and they work for the city. They don't exist to serve. The residents. They are serving the residents, but they're paid for by the city. What each addresses is slightly different. Their scope, right? So CACs are a conduit for residents of a certain district to the legislative branch of government. So that's city council. They're the lawmakers. Whereas district managers that work for the Department of Neighborhoods, they are your access in that district to the mayor's office, basically the executive administration versus the legislative branch. So the kind of issues that you would bring to each vary a little bit. If you are having issues of your trash didn't get picked up this week, or you've reported a street light out for a month now and it still hasn't gotten replaced, those are administrative issues. You would take those up with a district manager and they can kind of be your representative to city government to help get those addressed. If it's a legislative issue, so you are concerned about a solar field that's about to get built in your neighborhood and the city has to approve or deny that field being built, that's something you could take up through a CAC, and then they could represent you to city council. Similarly, funding for a rec center, or you really want to raise chickens in your big backyard, and city council is going to vote on whether you can be allowed to do that. That's something you could take to a community advisory council.
Covering these community advisory councils, Noah, with Detroit Documenters, what are some of the things that you have been noticing, and what's really happening in these community advisory councils?
All kinds of stuff happens at these meetings, right? So we've seen, for instance, city agencies get invited to come present to the residents of a district. So one time it was the fire department came and they spoke about safety issues in that district. Specifically, it was, EMS times, response times, vacant building fires, speed bumps, things like that. And they were really just kind of disseminating information to the residents. The last District 4 CAC meeting, there was really a robust and kind of heated conversation about about the solar field development in District 4, and specifically the city using eminent domain to take and purchase people's property. And, in that example, people were voicing their concerns loudly. One of the advisory council members actually had obtained a copy of one of the city letters talking about, the eminent domain. And so they were really like addressing a neighborhood issue and trying to figure out what were people's concerns and how should they be addressed to city council. So, there's those two examples. And then sometimes they're just discussing something as kind of minor as like, who gets to take home the computer printer that they purchased with their scrap together funds because, they don't have an office and nobody's paid, right? So somebody's got to take that printer home. So it runs the range.
Noah, can you talk about the two appointed members? These community advisory councils are trying to really understand what's going on with all residents in their districts.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. The two members of each that are appointed by city council, one is a youth representative, and they have to be between the ages of 13 and 17. And then there's another that's appointed to represent seniors and their issues. So yeah, in that sense, it is they really are intending to represent the entire swath of residents in that district.
Why do we only see 3 community advisory councils, but there's 7 total districts in Detroit?
Their creation is by petition. So if you don't have one in your district and you want one, what the charter says is someone has to circulate a petition. You have to collect enough signatures. It has to equal 10% or more of the number of voters in the previous general election in that district. To understand those numbers a little bit, in District 4, Scotty Bowman passed that petition around in 2019, and he got enough signatures, and it was, I think, 1,570 signatures. So that means, around 15,000 people had voted in the previous general election. And so as long as you can get enough signatures, then at the next general election, people can get on the ballot to run to be those new representatives of that community advisory council.
It's the Metro, and we're talking with Detroit Documenters coordinator Noah Kincaid and Outlier Media civic life reporter Brianna Rice. Community advisory councils meet to inform council members about problems and potential solutions to issues happening in their districts. But there's some hiccups making this election tricky this year. I want to get into this election with you, Brianna. Community advisory council incumbents are in a bit of a conundrum. What's going on with this election? What's making it challenging?
To make it simple, these are supposed to be 4-year terms for these councils, all of the people who've been elected. But per the charter, if they were elected in off years, so not the same years as when the mayor is elected, they have to go through another election process, even if they haven't done their 4 years. So this is an election year for all of the CACs. But no CEC member got signatures in on time to be on the ballot, which is unfortunate, but also part of that was due to some confusion from the city clerk's office. So Scotty Bowman, who's in District 4, and Byron Osborne, who helped start the District 5's Community Advisory Council, both said they went to the clerk's office and asked them, hey, when do I have to have my signatures in? They didn't specify that they were already in an established Community Advisory Council, or the clerk's office didn't hear that, I'm not sure. But regardless, they got a form for someone who wanted to form a newly started council that had a date in July, when really they had to have their signatures in April, like any other person who was running for election this year. So the clerk's office has since updated that form to clearly say newly formed council members, but it's already too late for anyone who would have wanted to be on the ballot. So anyone who wants to run for a community advisory council now will have to run a writing campaign, and for that they'll have to declare 2 weeks before the primary and then be involved in the general, or they will have to get appointed by their city council member if no one ends up running at all. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
Can you talk about how this is trying to be cleared up a little bit more?
Yeah, and I talked to Letitia Johnson from District 4 about that, what would happen with her community advisory council if no one ran. And that is what she said. She said, I'd appoint someone. So I think the thing about these community advisory councils, aside from District 7, which was established in 2017, the other two are fairly new. They have been established since the pandemic. So a lot of these issues that are coming up, a lot of these questions that these people on community advisory councils have to do with just not having done it before, right? Like, these are all new. I think they're still getting their footing. They're still figuring out, like, what power they have, how they get back on the councils. And some heavy hitters, Scotty Bowman, who helped establish District 4, he's now running for police commissioner. He's not going to be a part of this council anymore. So I think a lot of these confusions and kinks are just part of being not only new since the charter was established in 2012 and we have these new districts that our council members are elected from our districts, but it's also these councils themselves are pretty young, I would say.
What should these community advisory councils keep in mind? I think the biggest thing is that they are elected officials, and because of that, they are subject to the Open Meetings Act.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They have to, that means they have to issue proper notice of their meetings. They have to keep minutes. They have to make those minutes available to people when requested. They have to allow anyone to attend the meeting. Districts 4 and 5, it seem like they're being pretty good about that. I actually don't know what's going on with District 7's Community Advisory Council right now. It doesn't, on their website, at least on the city's web page for them, it doesn't appear that they've met since 2024. There are no meetings on the calendar in the future. There is no way to contact them. They don't have any contact information on their page. All the contacts are just for the District 7 City Council members and their staff. So that's kind of a bit of a black box. I don't, it's unclear to me if they are meeting and just not properly giving notice of those meetings, or if they are actually just not meeting at all right now.
I don't know. I called District 7 too to figure out, council member Fred Durhall's office even, like, hey, what's going on with your community advisory council? And they also didn't know. So whether or not District 7 is meeting, I think it's worth noting that, like, pretty impossible to find out as a resident. I think you should totally be able to call your district and at least someone should know what's going on. So I think, yeah, there are a lot of there can be a lot of steps, which this process is supposed to simplify those steps for people. So it's worth noting.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that the web pages for these advisory councils could be a little more transparent, right? Like, they don't even list who the members are. So I think, District 4 is the only one where you can find out who the members are, and that's because Scotty Bowman is like hosting a page for them on his own personal website. And that link is on the city's page. District 5, they have like their social media linked, their Facebook and their Twitter or whatever, but it doesn't look like those pages have been updated since 2023. And none of the official city pages list who the members are. I mean, that's just like the most basic thing that they could really improve.
CACs aren't the only ones not following the city charter. What is required of the city council and the mayor when it comes to community advisory councils in the city charter?
Yeah, per the charter, the mayor is supposed to meet at least once a year, and the full city council are supposed to meet once a year with these community advisory councils. I know that District 4, they have met with the mayor before, but they've never met with the full city council, and neither has District 5. So I think there are requirements that people would be really eager to see followed in the future.
That was producer Jack Philbrandt speaking with Detroit Documenters coordinator Noah Kincaid and Outlier Media civic reporter Brianna Rice. Government funding comes and goes, but the voices of Detroit stay strong with your help. WDET is facing serious revenue challenges due to the potential cuts being proposed in Washington. To keep the station thriving, returning to the real source of power, you. Our goal, 1,000 additional members. Let's stand together. Join now at WDET.org/give and tell a friend. All right, coming up next, what happens to our trash after it ends up in a landfill? We discuss how they work after the break. We'll be right back on the Metro. Stay right there.